I traveled back in time to ancient Greece. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I noticed was the blue, endless, breathtaking, shimmering shades of it. The sky stretched wide and open, unbroken by modernity, a celestial dome of aquamarine and sapphire. Beneath it, the Aegean Sea mirrored the heavens, lapping against the coastlines in waves that sparkled as if Zeus himself had scattered diamonds across its surface. I stood barefoot on warm, sun-kissed stones, the scent of salt, wild thyme, and sun-dried earth wrapping around me like a hymn to this ancient world. At first, I thought it a dream. How could it not be? The timeless beauty of this place defied logic. But as I looked closer, I saw the soft haze of smoke rising from clay chimneys and heard the lilting melody of a lyre carried by the wind. This was no dream. I had traveled back in time to ancient Greece. The first faces I encountered were those of the merchants in the agora. Their features were weathered, their eyes sharp and observant. They were constantly in motion, bargaining with hands and voices in a dance as old as commerce itself. One merchant, his face framed by a graying beard, caught my attention. His laughter was loud and unapologetic as he teased a young boy trying to haggle over olives. Another woman, her arms dusted with flour, smiled warmly at me as she offered a loaf of fresh bread. Her eyes were kind, carrying the wisdom of someone who had seen much but remained unshaken by life's trials. I wandered among the crowd, marveling at the craftsmanship around me, amphorae painted with tales of gods and mortals, bronze trinkets that caught the sunlight, and bolts of fabric dyed in rich, earthy hues. A young man with dark, curly hair caught my gaze as he demonstrated his pottery skills to a small group. His hands, coated in clay, moved with a precision that seemed almost divine. He glanced up and grinned, his expression a mix of pride and playfulness. In Athens, I found myself in the shadow of the Acropolis, surrounded by faces filled with reverence and awe. Families climbed together, their voices a blend of excitement and quiet respect. A little girl held her father's hand tightly, her wide eyes fixed on the temple above. An elderly man, leaning on a walking stick, paused to catch his breath, his expression serene as he gazed at the Parthenon. Inside the temple, a priestess with strikingly calm eyes regarded me. Her features were stoic, but her voice was gentle as she welcomed me into Athena's sacred space. In Delphi, the air was different, quieter, heavier, as if the very earth held its breath. Pilgrims gathered near the temple of Apollo, their faces a tapestry of hope and desperation. One man, his hands trembling, waited for a chance to ask the Pythia a question. A woman in simple robes approached me, her gaze piercing. "You carry something unfamiliar," she said cryptically before disappearing into the crowd. The Pythia herself was a figure of mystery. Her face was serene. Olympia brought different faces, those of athletes, their bodies bronzed and glistening, their expressions focused and determined. One young man, barely more than a boy, adjusted his wreath of olive leaves nervously as he prepared for his race. An older competitor placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, their shared smile a fleeting moment of camaraderie before the competition. The crowd was a sea of excitement, their cheers a unifying force that seemed to elevate both winners and losers. When I reached Crete, the faces were softer, more weathered by the sea air. Fishermen hauled in their nets, their features etched with years of labor under the sun. Children played by the shore, their laughter light and carefree. Inside the palace of Knossos, the frescoes depicted faces of a different kind, stylized, yet alive with movement. The bull leapers in the paintings seemed to leap off the walls, their expressions frozen in a mix of fear and exhilaration. A young girl with intricately braided hair watched me as I wandered through the halls, her curious gaze following me like a shadow. Everywhere I went, the people were the soul of this ancient world. They were not just figures in a painting or actors in a play, they were vibrant, complex, and achingly human. Their laughter, their struggles, their quiet moments of reflection, it all felt deeply familiar, a reminder that while centuries separate us, the essence of humanity remains unchanged. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of gold and lavender, I stood on a cliff overlooking the Aegean. A group of fishermen shared a meal below, their laughter carrying on the wind. Nearby, a young couple sat on the rocks, their hands barely touching but their connection unmistakable. An elderly woman, her hair silver in the fading light, hummed a tune as she wove a basket, her face peaceful. In those moments, I understood that ancient Greece wasn't just a place, it was a living, breathing world full of stories, emotions, and lives that resonated across time. The faces I saw were as eternal as the tides, each one a reminder of the beauty and complexity of human existence. The architecture of ancient Greece was unlike anything I had ever seen, a harmony of grandeur and simplicity, logic and beauty, permanence and transience. As I wandered through the sun-drenched cities, the structures around me whispered stories of a civilization that understood not just how to build, but why to build. Every column, every carved detail, every stone laid with care seemed to echo the philosophical depth of its creators. The Parthenon was the first marvel that took my breath away. Rising majestically on the Acropolis of Athens, it was a perfect marriage of geometry and artistry. The columns, Doric in design, stood tall and proud, their fluted forms gleaming in the sunlight like ribs of an ancient titan. The slight curvature of the columns, imperceptible to the untrained eye, lent an organic grace to the structure, as though it were breathing. The marble seemed almost alive, glowing softly in the golden light of the afternoon. Inside, the statue of Athena Parthenos, though partially veiled in shadow, radiated an aura of wisdom and strength that silenced even the whispers of the tourists of the past. In Delphi, the Temple of Apollo stood as a more austere, yet equally evocative, piece of architecture. Its ruins spoke of reverence, its columns like skeletal remains reaching skyward, longing for the divine. The sanctuary's placement amidst the dramatic Parnassian cliffs made it feel like a sacred space carved out of the heavens themselves. The symmetry of the structure reflected the balance between human devotion and natural majesty. Standing within the remnants of the temple, I felt as though I were at the center of a cosmic conversation between gods and mortals. The Palace of Knossos in Crete was another revelation. Unlike the rigid symmetry of classical Greek temples, this labyrinthine structure was alive with movement and color. The red and black columns, thinner at the base than at the top, seemed to defy architectural convention, creating a sense of fluidity and rhythm. Frescoes adorned the walls, vivid with hues of blue, red, and ochre, depicting dolphins, bull leapers, and flora in dynamic poses. The labyrinth itself, with its winding corridors and hidden chambers, whispered tales of the Minotaur and Daedalus, each corner holding the promise of mystery and adventure. In Olympia, the Temple of Zeus was awe-inspiring in its sheer scale. The fallen columns, some still lying where they had toppled centuries ago, hinted at the enormity of what once stood. Walking among these massive remnants, I could almost hear the chants of priests and the murmurs of athletes offering prayers to Zeus. The grand statue of the god, though long gone, left behind an indelible impression of power and divinity. The theaters were another highlight, architectural wonders that blended art with acoustics. The theater at Epidaurus was a marvel of engineering. Its semicircular arrangement of stone seats rose gracefully against the hillside, creating a perfect amphitheater. I tested the famed acoustics, speaking softly at the center of the stage. To my amazement, even those at the very top rows turned their heads, catching every word. These theaters were not just places of entertainment, they were spaces where community and culture came alive, where human voices resonated with the landscapes. Even the agoras, the bustling marketplaces, had their own architectural charm. The stoa, long-covered walkways supported by rows of columns, provided shade and a sense of order amidst the lively chaos of commerce. The geometry of these spaces was practical yet elegant, inviting people to linger, converse, and exchange not just goods, but ideas. The smaller, everyday structures were no less captivating. Homes were built with simplicity, yet they revealed a keen understanding of light, air, and space. Whitewashed walls reflected the intense Mediterranean sun, while courtyards brimmed with potted plants and fountains that brought life and coolness. Clay tiles on the roofs, weathered by time, added a warm, earthy texture. What struck me most was how Greek architecture wasn't just about utility or aesthetics, it was a reflection of their worldview. Their buildings were designed to honor the gods, celebrate human potential, and harmonize with the natural environment. The use of proportions, symmetry, and optical illusions demonstrated an understanding of human perception that was remarkably advanced. The architecture of ancient Greece was not just built for its time, it was built for eternity. Walking among these structures, I felt the unbroken connection between past and present, a reminder that beauty and purpose can transcend the limits of time. These monuments weren't just stone and marble, they were stories, philosophies, and dreams etched into the earth. And then, as suddenly as I had arrived, I was gone, back to my own time, carrying with me the colors, the sounds, and the stories of those faces. If ever I doubted the magic of history, this journey erased those doubts. Ancient Greece is not merely a chapter in a textbook, it is a vivid, eternal reminder of who we are and who we can become.